Hey guys, it's Crossroads here. Today I wanted to talk to you about Nubank, specifically a glance at it as it goes in earnings this Tuesday, and also look at what is new and significant and what I'm watching for in that earnings itself. Now, I'm not putting out an earnings prediction other than just saying that it's likely going to be a triple beat, and there's a few factors why. Now, here are the revenue estimates. We can see there's not a lot of analysts for this coverage, so take it with a grain of salt, but you can see that it's actually coming in quite soft at a 17.95% year over year estimate, which is very, very low. I don't think that that's accurate at all. We'll look at why in just a moment. And for EPS as well, we can see that where the estimate is. In addition, that the trends have actually shifted around a little bit, but for EPS, it's actually stayed about the same as well. Now, what am I thinking as far as earnings? Well, you can look at this. This is the trading view, and I'm not sure if you can see this when I zoom in, but for revenue, they always, and I mean always, beat. They don't have an issue with that. You can see green after green as I scroll over here. Even in last quarter, which was very soft because of headwinds with currency issues, they still beat on revenue. Now, where they did get impacted, where they do miss sometimes, is EPS. And so EPS, I still think that it's probably going to be a meet or beat, but if not, it's going to be pretty close, and that'll be fine. Now, why am I thinking that revenue is going to beat expectations by quite a bit? Well, let's look at the factor that really influenced it last quarter. Now, last quarter they came out and they still beat on revenue, but the biggest factor was the Brazilian real and its trading against the United States dollar. Nubank, of course, is based primarily in Brazil. They have rolled out in Colombia and Mexico as well. And we'll have a little bit more news on international stuff at the end of this video. Nevertheless, almost all of their revenue is in Brazil. And so when the Brazilian real is performing very poorly against the United States dollar, and we see that certainly has been the case, what this does is it creates a tremendous headwind against the stock. Now, they'll report in dollar neutral terms, but the market really looks at that more for long-term trends and health of the business. But in the short term, they look at the actual money that's made. And so as a result, we can see what happened here. Look at that date, December 30th. Essentially, this is when it peaked, right at the end of the quarter. And since then, basically what's happened is a 26-point headwind in quarter four because of the way that this was trading to the United States dollar has shifted to a 11% tailwind. Is that substantial? Yes, it absolutely is. And so I think that they're absolutely positioned for a pretty good beat on the revenue. I don't think it'll be even close. Now, that's not a guarantee of stock price action. I personally don't trade earnings. I do make decisions based on trying to load up more or not. Prior to earnings, if I think that they're going to beat or miss, but I don't usually change my position going in or make short-term bets. With Nubank last week, I bought the dip quite heavily. I hadn't bought Nubank in a little while. I know it had been lower for a little while longer, but sometimes it pays to wait over things and just hold. That's what I did until last week, where I just said, you know what, now is the time to buy Nubank and not quite double down, but certainly add quite a bit. Why am I doing that? What am I looking for in this earnings? The big picture for Nubank are two things. Their lending products and, of course, how they hold up as far as delinquencies, which I'm not aware enough of how those will perform in Mexico, Brazil, or really in Brazil this quarter. I think it'll be pretty consistent. They lend very well, but also that international expansion and deposits. And so there's a couple of pieces of news that are significant. One of those was that came out here just a few weeks ago on April 24th, that Nubank finally received approval for their banking license. They applied for this thing over a year and a half ago. No news, no updates. It was very clear that they were optimistic because of some of the things that they were talking about and launching as well. I don't know why it took so long, but nevertheless, I am very excited. Now, why is it such a big deal for Nubank? Well, their international expansion into Colombia and also Mexico really is strengthened by this. As a banking charter and a banking license, it makes it a lot easier to obtain and also hold deposits, which really fuels the rest of the Nubank ecosystem. They have a real flywheel, especially in Brazil. They're continuing to launch more products out in Mexico and Colombia as well. But the other big factor is lending. If you are not a bank or you're not partnered with a bank and they frankly just don't have the banking infrastructure in Mexico that they need to, then you are very disadvantaged when it comes to lending, especially in the United States, but it's also true in most international locales. Now, the other piece that was very interesting was this piece of news related to international expansion. We did see, mentions that they are going to be launching in several other countries as well down the road. And the next one is probably going to be Argentina. No falta mucho para que anuncien la vienda de New Argentina. So this essentially is saying that it's not going to be much longer until they actually do announce the products. Now, why? This is an Argentinian website that essentially says that they've applied for wallets and they've applied as an entity as well to be working in Argentina. This is significant because it's the next largest untapped Latin American country. Of course, things have stabilized quite a bit there under Milei, and hopefully will continue to do so. And Argentina actually historically has been higher and better than the fourth largest economy in South America. And I think it can reclaim that again. Time will tell, but this is an area that's also an opportunity for new. Now, when new enters into a new product line, not really product line, but country, initially there are headwinds to the actual profitability simply because it does take some expense to launch internationally. They've done it very conservatively and very well, and some of those are looking like that they're going to turn into not just top line revenue and growth as far as the ecosystem, but actually really into substantial profits. One of those things that I'm looking at is the sequential growth in their lending products line. Now, you can see here, they don't break this down internationally. The real reason why is it's basically all Brazil. There is a little bit of Mexican loans that are going on, but until this banking charter actually hit, they really couldn't do that in mass, but they are ready to go on that product. And you can see here just the growth, the credit yield as well over the years. And beyond that, we also see right here the deposits. Now, the deposits, they do break out. You can see the ledger over here. Brazil, of course, the largest by far, Mexico, and then Colombia. And Colombia is quite a bit newer. Mexico was launched in 2020, but you can see the deposit growth is going well. And this should only accelerate as they certainly launch in Argentina eventually at some point, but especially for Mexico with that banking license, with that banking charter. So this is very good news. Of course, they drives a lot of parts of their ecosystem. Now, one last thing that I'll show on this. This is something that was actually announced at the end of 2023 that in essence, Nubank said, hey, we're going to start offering personal loans in Mexico. Well, there is a catch. The way that they do this, especially in a newer market, is not just say, okay, we're going to go out there into the public market, especially without a banking license, and just issue this to anybody. Instead, they lend it first to employees at Nubank. They made that offer there as a pilot program, just so to make sure that the app and everything is working correctly. And there's a tremendous opportunity with lending products in Mexico. I think that Latin America in general, with nearshoring, is certainly poised for even stronger economic growth, as long as there's not a global sustained trade war, that is. Could be, but at least right now, it looks like things are working out okay on that front. But this is a market that's very underbanked, very undertapped as far as lending products and as far as banks as well. I'm not going to read this whole article, but there's been quite a bit written about this. So definitely check it out and look into this. But these are really, really good tailwinds for Nubank as a business, and I think as a stock heading into this Q1 earnings. So that's what I'm looking for is updates, of course, how international expansion is going, comments specifically relating to the Mexican banking license, and also any impact as far as tariff stuff. I don't think that there's first order effects. There could be second order effects, and also to see how those loans continue to perform, especially internationally as well. These, I think, are exciting times to have Nubank in your portfolio. I've certainly added to it, and I plan to hold this company for a long time, and I'm looking forward to their earnings as well. Anyway, let me know what you think in the comments. Is there something that you're looking forward to in the earnings that I overlooked? These are certainly interesting earnings with a lot of details, and this is a complex company. So let me know in the comments. Thank you for watching, commenting, and subscribing. And until next time, happy investing.